Vampires of the Illiac Bay Chapter 2. Return to Vampires of the Illiac Bay Chapter 1. I told in the first chapter of my story how I became a vampire and of my first kill. While it might, and indeed should, horrify the reader that my first victim was a friend of the mortal I used to be, it is my understanding that they are not an uncommon first kill. I left the snow-white corpse in the alley and ran to the only place I felt perversely safe, the mausoleum. For the first couple of days of my own death, I starved myself while I considered my fate. I relearned what I was capable of doing, and found that I was stronger, faster, tougher, and more agile than before. I had powers that as a knight I had only seen powerful mages wield. Later, I discovered additional abilities such as total immunity to disease, helpful when descending on a plague-stricken city like a jackal. I also found my weakness. I could no longer stand the light of the sun. Exposure to it for longer than just a few seconds burned me terribly. It also pained me to enter temples and other places of worship. The worst effect, of course, had to be my bloodlust. If I did not kill a warm-blooded creature once a night and drink its blood, my hunger would gnaw at me, and any wounds I suffered would not heal no matter how much I rested. In the moment, for me to admit, there was a time I loved being a bloodsucking creature of the night. It is not impossible to live only at night, merely occasionally inconvenient, and I wouldn't have to kill humans every night, merely warm-blooded creatures. Orcs have a delicious, rich, frothy blood. Rats are a little sweet for the only meal of night. Well, werewolves are a real treat, almost decadent in their tincture between human and beast, a real gourmet's delight. About a month after I died, I was having the best time of my life. One night I received a letter from someone who said he was family. Curious, I went to visit him at his tavern, and he told me about the tribe of vampires to which I belong, the Montalion. In return for me performing certain duties for the family, the man at the inn would train me in my vampiric abilities and skills. Though I never got very much detail, I surmised that the two main differences between the different vampire clans is geography and powers. Montalion alone have the gift for teleportation, but the other eight have powers of their own. My mentor, that is the title he used, would congratulate me after each mission I performed, and came to trust me more and more. If asked, he would tell me about the Montalion newest alliances, who they were manipulating, who they were stalking. It was then I started to become frightened at last. They and all of their rival clans were draining the blood of Tamriel itself. I panicked. I had to find a cure, but nowhere could I find any book or rumor suggesting that vampirism is anything but permanent. So I resolved to kill myself, but I wanted to bring the Montalion down with me. I joined guilds they opposed and failed any mission given to me spectacularly. I thought my mentor would turn against me, but he only became quieter, less forthcoming with information, never violent. He was not concerned. He had probably seen vampires like me before. Here's why he never attacked me. Immortals can afford to be eternally patient. At last he refused to give me any further missions. He wouldn't even talk with me, but he never left his tavern. I could come and go, and he'd watch but never talk. That's when I got another letter. There are several of us, you see, former vampires, who know what to look for. We're patient. 2. We learned it in our life. We watch and listen, and anonymously contact the vampires we know wish to end the curse. Ending the curse is possible, but only just. It is very dangerous, but when you are cursed, the only real danger is no escape. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Vampires of the Illiac Bay, Chapter 2. The Wabbajack. Little boys shouldn't summon the forces of eternal darkness unless they have an adult supervising. I know, but on the sunny night of the 5th as first seed, I didn't want an adult. I wanted Hermes Mora, the Daedra of knowledge, learning, gums, and varnishes. You see, I was told by a beautiful large-breasted man who lived under the library in my hometown that the birth of first seed was Hermes Mora's night, and if I wanted the Ogma Infinium, the Book of Knowledge, I had to summon him. When you're the new King of Solitude, every bit of knowledge helps. Normally, you need a witch's coven, or a mage's guild, or at least matching pillowcase and sheet to invoke a prince of oblivion. The man at the library showed me how to do it himself. He told me to wait until the storm was at its height, before shaving the cat. I've forgotten the rest of the ceremony. It doesn't matter. Someone appeared who I thought was Hermes Mora. The only thing that made me somewhat suspicious was Hermes Mora, from what I read, was a big blobby, multi-eyed, clawed monstrosity, and this guy looked like a waistcoated banker. Also, he kept calling himself Sheogorath, not Hermes Mora. Still, I was so happy to have successfully summoned Hermes Mora, these inconsistencies did not bother me. He had me do some things that didn't make any sense to me. beyond the mortal scope, breadth and keen, I suppose, and then his servant happily gave me something called the Wabbajack. Wabbajack? Wabbajack? Wabbajack, 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 Wabbajack. Maybe the Wabbajack is the book of knowledge. Maybe I'm smarter because I know cats can be bats, can be rats, can be hats, can be gnats, can be that's, can be thises, and the that's, and can be bores and snores, can be floors, can be roars, can be spores, can be yours, can be mine. I must be smart, for the inconnective system is very clear to me. Then why or wherefore do people keep calling me mad? Wabbajack, Wabbajack, Wabbajack. And that, obviously, if you did not know, was Wabbajack. Wayrest, Jewel of the Bay, by Sathir Longleat. Wayrest is one of the most glorious cities Wayrest is one of the most glorious cities of Western Tamriel, sparkling in her contemporary beauty, lustrous by her past. She is prized above all cities in High Rock. No other city has contributed and continues to contribute so much to the culture of the Bretons. The spirits of her genius children continue to haunt the streets. You can see them in the gabled roofs and grand boulevards, aromatic marketplaces. The people of Wayrest have an instinctive appreciation of their past, but are not obsessed by it, as the people of Daggerfall seem to be. One feels that one is a modern city when one visits Wayrest, but there is a magic in the air that could only come from 32 centuries of civilization. It is difficult for historians to declare a certain date for the foundation of Wayrest. A settlement of some variety had been in existence where Pjolse River feeds the Illiac Bay, possibly since the 800th year of the First Era. The traders and fishermen of Wayrest were surrounded by hostile parties. The orc capital Orsinium had grown like a poison weed to the north, and the Akaviri pirates and raiders crowded the islands to the west. There is no mystery to Wayrest's name. After the fighting, most travelers had to endure passing through the east end of the Illiac Bay. The little fishing village on the Pjolse was a welcome rest. Nowhere in the much-vaunted censuses of Skyrim, occupation is Wayrest mentioned. In the Annals of Daggerfall, King Joli's letter to the guidance Shinji of the Order of Diagna contains the following reference. The orcs have been much plaguing the Wayresters and impeding traffic in the heart of the land. The date given for the letter was the First Era, 948. Wayrest only truly bloomed after the razing of Orsinium in the First Era, 980. The hard-working traders and merchants were instrumental in forming the Masconian tradeway, and thus reducing the pirate activity on the bay. At this time, Wayrest had occupied both banks on the Pjolse. A successful mercantile family, the Gardeners, built a walled palace on the High Rock side of the river, and over time allowed banks and other businesses within its walls. It was a Gardener, Farngel, who was proclaimed king when Wayrest accepted ambassadors from the Camorian Empire and was granted the right to call itself a kingdom in the 1100th year of the First Era. Although Wayrest became a kingdom under the command of one family, the merchants continued to wield incredible power. Many economists have alleged that Wayrest's eternal wealth, despite all her hardships, comes from this rare relationship between the merchants and the crown. The Gardener dynasty fell, followed by the Cumberland dynasty, which was followed by the Horley dynasty, and finally in the Third Era, the Septim dynasty. No citizen of another kingdom of comparable age can, with one hand, name all the families who have ever ruled. Never has a king of Wayrest been deposed by revolution or assassination. Except for those of the Septim family, every king of Wayrest can trace his line back to a merchant prince of Wayrest. The merchants and kings respect one another, and this relationship strengthens both. One need only walk down the great boulevard of Wayrest to see the physical proof of this unique alliance. Go north to south, Wayrest Boulevard suddenly divides, one half going west, the other going east. Both halves end in identical squares, one at Castle Wayrest, the other at the original palace of Afrin Gardener, and the other at Cumberland Square, were the oldest and wealthiest marketplace in Wayrest. The message here is clear. The king and the merchants are joined and equal. Wayrest has survived blights, droughts, plagues, piracy, invasions, and war with good humor and practicality. In the First Era, 2702, the entire population of the city was forced to move into the walled estate of the Gardeners as protection against the pirates, Akaviri raiders, and Thrashing plague. A less resourceful community would have withered, but the Wayresters have survived to enrich Tamriel generation after generation. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Wayrest, Jewel of the Bay. The Wild Elves by Kirgo Chorvok. In the wilds of most every province of Tamriel, descended philosophically, if not directly, from the original inhabitants of the land, are the Aelids, commonly called the Wild Elves. While three races of elven stock, the Salch, or High Elves, the Boish, or Wood Elves, and the Morsh, the Dark Elves, have assimilated well into the new cultures of Tamriel, the Aelids and their brethren have remained aloof toward our civilization, preferring to practice the old ways far from the eyes of the world. The Wild Elves speak of a variation of old Cyrodiilic, opting to shun Tamrielic and separating themselves from the mainstream of Tamriel even further than the last urbanized of their elven cousins. In temperament, they are dark-spirited and taciturn, though this is from the point of view of outsiders, or Palani in their tongue, and doubtless they act different within their own tribes. Indeed, one of the finest sages at the University of William was a civilized Aeliad elf, Churhain Fier, the first era 2790 to the second era 227, whose published work on the Wild Elves suggested a lively, vibrant culture. Fire is one of the few Aelids to speak freely on his people and religion, and he himself said the nature of the Aeliad tribes is multi-hued. Their personalities often wildly different from their neighboring tribes. Fire, T, Nature of the Aelidic Posey, page 8, University of Willem Press, the Second Era, 12. Like any alien culture, Wild Elves are often feared by the simple people of Tamriel. The Aelids continue to be one of the great enigmas on the continents of Tamriel. They seldom appear in the pages of written history in any role, and then only as a strange sight a chronicler stumbles upon before they vanish into the wood. When probable fiction is filtered from common legend, we are left with almost nothing. The mysterious ways of the Aelids have remained shrouded since before the First Era, and may well remain so for thousands of years to come. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the Wild Elves, and that is also the last book in the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall. So with that, we are officially, after 14 bonus episodes, we are officially done with the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall. Now, tomorrow, there's going to be the review for the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, so go check it out. If you are seeing this video later, then the video is already out and will be linked at the end of this video. So, for all of you who have watched this entire series, not just the bonus episodes, but the entire series throughout, thank you guys so much for watching. I had a wonderful time playing Daggerfall, and I am so excited to get into Battlespire, Redguard, and eventually Morrowind. Man, oh man. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the review episode. Goodbye.